Alexander the Great is a bright star of the ancient world. He was worshipped as a god, traveled all over the world, and died at the dawn of his years. His victories have inspired people of all times, from Caesar to Napoleon. However, while much is known about other historical figures, the identity of Macedon seems mysterious. Let's explore who he was, why he is considered great, and what the meaning of his conquests were. Alexander was the king of Macedonia. Who were the Macedonians? Doesn't the modern state of Macedonia in Eastern Europe have something to do with them? Actually, no. Modern Slavic Macedonia is a former part of Yugoslavia, geographically located to the north of Alexander the Great's homeland and having only a common name with ancient Macedonia. The ancient Macedonians were related to the ancient Greeks. The Macedonians spoke the same language, believed in the same gods. Alexander's ancestors on his father's side even claimed kinship with Hercules, son of the god Zeus. However, the ancient Greeks considered the Macedonians almost barbarians. They had no democracy, and Macedonian kings had an Asian style of government. There were unique customs such as polygamy. For example, Alexander's father, King Philip, had 7 wives. Alexander's mother was Olympias, Philip's 5th wife. She came from the province of Epirus in northwestern Greece and was considered a barbarian even among the Macedonians. Olympia's origins made Alexander a half-breed, for the queen herself claimed kinship with the hero of the Trojan War, Achilles. Although Olympias was of marvelous beauty, she was considered a sorceress, and according to one legend, she conceived Alexander by sharing a bed with a serpent. The relationship between the parents quickly turned into mutual enmity. Alexander inherited the traits of both parents from Philip, a calculating nature that paved the way for his conquests. In the 4th century BC, Macedonia became a powerful power in Greece and dictated its will to other city-states such as Athens and Sparta. Philip, a skilled diplomat and strategist, won victories on the battlefield and bought the support of Greek politicians, but he could not handle his own wife. Olympias often mocked Philip in the presence of her son, and Alexander inherited her rebelliousness and proud disposition. Otherwise, he grew up as a child prodigy. When ambassadors from Persia arrived in Macedonia, Alexander, still a child, communicated with them on behalf of his absent father. The Persians were amazed at how the child asked questions about the economy and the state of the roads. At the age of 12, Alexander tamed a wild horse named Bucephalus, which remained his faithful companion throughout his life. Even King Philip admired his son, saying, "Son, find yourself a bigger kingdom. Macedonia is too small for you." The idea of conquering the world had been in the air since Alexander's childhood. His teacher, the philosopher Aristotle, invited by Philip to Macedonia, inspired him with the idea of the greatness of Greek culture. Alexander's mission as ruler was to spread this culture. So why is Alexander the Great considered great, and how did he manage to accomplish his fantastic conquests? Alexander was in the right place at the right time. He was a great military leader, starting at the age of 16 when he participated in his father's campaigns. By the time he began his conquests, his opponents were no longer a serious threat. Under Philip, the Greek cities became dependent on Macedonia. Under the leadership of the inept King Darius, Persia was falling apart, its vast empire scattered under minor rulers and held together by word of mouth. In 336 BC, when King Philip was assassinated by his own bodyguard, Alexander was left to seize power. It was rumored that this assassination attempt was planned by Olympias and Alexander. This may be why Philip's newborn daughter from his 7th marriage was immediately murdered along with her mother on Olympias' orders. At first, Alexander continued his father's work and united all of Greece under his rule. He was pragmatic to those cities that surrendered without a fight. He granted honors and privileges, while the recalcitrant ones, like Thebes, were destroyed and their inhabitants sold into slavery. Greeks from the captured cities joined the Macedonian army. Alexander conducted a skillful PR campaign among the Greeks in preparation for a future campaign against the Persians. Proclaiming himself a direct descendant of Achilles, he sponsored street orators to praise him throughout the country. Their speeches declared that Alexander was the new Achilles and his maternal descendant, so the Greeks should follow him eastward as they had once followed Achilles. It should not be forgotten that the Persians also funded anti-Macedonian Greek orators, such as Demosthenes. Propaganda did not work for everyone. For example, the philosopher Diogenes rejected Alexander's offer. When he arrived in Corinth, the king told Diogenes to ask for anything. Diogenes replied, "Don't stop me from enjoying the sun." Alexander was amazed at his boldness. Overall, however, his publicity campaign was successful. When Alexander began his campaign against the Persians, nothing could stop him. Ancient cities fell one after another. The Greek world had previously been involved in wars between tiny polities. Now, thanks to Alexander, Macedonia controlled vast areas of Asia Minor, the Middle East, and Egypt. What was the secret of his success? First, in the Macedonian phalanx, developed under Philip. This tactical advantage turned infantry into an impenetrable shield with 6-meter spears. The Persians experienced this at the battles of Granicus and Gaugamela, two of Alexander's great victories. Second, Alexander instilled in his warriors a startup spirit. Macedonia was like a young, dynamic, game-changing company. He referred to his cavalry as Guterres comrades. Thanks to his phenomenal memory, he knew almost every warrior by name and face. No wonder they followed him to India and the Hindu Kush, where he took Roxana, a beautiful barbarian, as his wife. We remember from school how Alexander's empire collapsed immediately after his death. The question arises, why couldn't he stop after conquering Persia and striving to reach the ocean, believing that beyond it was the edge of the world? Alexander, King of Macedonia, which other Greeks had recently considered a barbaric outskirt, was obsessed with the dream of uniting the entire known world and imbuing it with great Greek culture. Although his empire collapsed immediately after his death, his conquests changed the world to such an extent that the era he dreamed of began the age of Hellenism. This is the time when Greek culture merged with Eastern culture and spread throughout the Mediterranean and beyond. Thanks to Alexander's conquests, ancient Greek was spoken in what is now Uzbekistan, Libya, and Iran. It became an international language of communication like English today. Greek cultural influence was visible even in the north of India, where statues of local gods corresponded to the canonical images of Zeus. It is important to note that Alexander did not simply conquer new lands to collect tribute, as Eastern monarchs before him had done. He founded entire cities and resettled Greek colonists there, encouraging marriages between Greeks and locals. Showing personal example, he even took as his wife the daughter of the Persian king, his enemy. In Persia, he organized a magnificent wedding in which 10,000 Persian girls married 10,000 of his friends and soldiers. His ambition was to unite the Greek and Eastern elites, effectively creating a new nation that would combine the traits of the West and East. Alexander's campaigns also brought significant scientific benefits. The city he founded, Alexandria in Egypt, became the scientific center of the entire ancient world, largely because of its famous library. Along with Alexander's army marched special groups that measured distances and made detailed maps of regions. Before the Macedonian came along, no one had given this much thought. What is often presented by popular culture as a sign of Alexander's ambition was actually a political calculation. For example, after conquering Egypt, he proclaimed himself a god, and after conquering Persia, he made his courtiers worship him as an Eastern monarch. This caused resentment and anger among his soldiers, but Alexander consciously took such steps to consolidate his power among the Eastern peoples. After all, the rulers of Egypt had always been considered divine, and the East worshipped their king. Therefore, he tried to make his power as legitimate as possible. His policy with the defeated included flirting. When King Darius was betrayed and killed by his henchmen, Alexander posthumously honored Darius with royal honors and subjected the traitors to the terrible Eastern punishment. After the Battle of Hydaspes, Alexander appointed the defeated Indian king Porus as his viceroy and even expanded his holdings. Early in his conquests in Phrygia, Alexander visited a local landmark, the Gordian Knot. Legend has it that whoever could untie it would own all of Asia. Alexander simply cut it. This case becomes a metaphor when one speaks of Alexander's power over Asia based solely on force. But this is only part of the truth. Alexander was a skilled diplomat and politician, obsessed with the dream of Hellenizing the world, and he succeeded. Only when his army was on the verge of revolt due to fatigue did Alexander abort his 10-year campaign and return again. His early death at age 33 from an unfortunate combination of medications interrupted his plans. Who knows what would have happened to his empire had he had more time? After Alexander's death in 323 BC, his empire began to be torn apart by his former generals and bodyguards, the Diadocos. Dynasties of Diadocs ruled the region for centuries. For example, the famous Cleopatra, the last queen of Egypt, was descended from Ptolemy, one of Alexander the Great's generals. The era of Hellenism lasted about 300 years and was the first example of globalization in world history. This process would not have been possible without the genius and talent of Alexander, which is why he is still considered great to this day. Thank you, dear friends, for joining me on this fascinating journey through history. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss new videos about exciting events and facts from the past. Also, leave your comments below this video. I'm always happy to hear your thoughts, suggestions, and requests for topics for future videos. See you all again on the channel.